Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We'll be starting in a couple of moments. We're just letting a few more people join and dealing with some technical issues on our end. But thank you all and look forward to talking to you in a couple of minutes. Shamsia, you're with us.
Yes, I'm here with you, Jack.
Oh, you had me worried. You had me worried. We could see your muted microphone, and I was very sort of worried we were going to have to sort of keep talking for as long as possible. But great to see you join us. And yeah, Shamsia, now that you're here, that we can get underway. So hi everyone, very welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to hand over to Jessica Baumgartner-Zuzik of Alliance for Peacebuilding to introduce today's session.
Hi, thank you so much to everyone who was able to join us today. We're very excited to welcome you to this first session of our Ask an Expert series, where we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into questions related to evaluating interreligious peace building. And we know that in good, normal, and I hate to say normal, abnormal, previous times, this was always a complicated issue. And given new constraints, this is becoming even more of a complicated issue. So we're going to start today looking at the concept of how we prepare to evaluate an interreligious peace building program. Beyond even questions of how this may differ, and we're going to talk to Shamsia, a wonderful expert and a good friend and colleague, who's going to give you some of the inside scoop of some of the questions she's confronted in the past, of both successes, failures, and I think ongoing questions, but kind of moving through this process of evaluation and thinking about what it really means to start an evaluation. And that includes things like finding an evaluator, drafting your TOR, thinking about your research questions and kind of where you want to go from there. This series is part of our Effective Interreligious Action and Peacebuilding Program, or EIAP. I think many of you who are on the line probably have engaged with us in the past, but we're coming from the Alliance for Peacebuilding, and I know Jack's going to talk a little bit about Search for Common Ground, DME for Peace, but AFP is a nonpartisan network of 130 plus organizations who work in 181 countries to end violent conflict and help sustain peace. And the EIAP program actually started many years ago, but we're focused in our second iteration where we're trying to lead the field to embrace a more evidence-based approach to develop more effective interreligious action or interreligious peace building. And we do that through two main categories. One, on improving DM&E capacity, design, monitoring, evaluation writ large. How do we help improve that capacity with individual faith actors as well as secular and interreligious organizations who may work or engage with faith actors? And we also, through our second component of helping to build connections, how we bring individuals together to discuss and share from peer learning opportunities like today. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Jack to provide a little bit of an opening here and introduce Shamsia, who is our very, very respected expert for today's presentation.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jessica, and thank you for persevering through microphone issues. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be facilitating today's session. Now, I recognize many of the people who are joining us today, but for those of you who are unfamiliar, my name is Jack Farrell. I am the Manager for Partnerships and Strategic Innovation at Search for Common Ground. I'm joining you from London, and a little bit about Search for Common Ground. We're the world's largest dedicated peacebuilding organization. I can see a couple of my colleagues online with us. And our mission is to transform the way the world deals with conflict, away from adversarial approaches towards cooperative solutions. One of the elements of my role at Search is that I oversee the DME for Peace platform. DME for Peace is a global knowledge platform that showcases best and emerging practices and what works in the peace building, development, and humanitarian fields. And as part of our work on the Effective Interreligious Action and Peacebuilding project, we have hosted a community of practice on DME for Peace, which has included sort of the in-person meetings that we did a number of years ago, as well as the creation of the Faith Matters Guide. But that's enough about me. So who is our expert today? I know you guys are all curious. Why are we having an Ask an Expert series? Well, I'm delighted to be welcoming Shamsia Ramadhan of Catholic Relief Services to today's webinar. So Shamsia is based in CRS's East Africa Regional Office and brings a wealth of knowledge to this discussion from CRS's work. Now, the goal of today's session is to have an open discussion about the key things to consider when preparing to evaluate an interreligious peacebuilding program. And as the title suggests, this is a session built for you. So we want to hear your questions and insights. We want to make sure that this is a fruitful discussion that allows us to learn as a field and as a community. So a couple of notes about our format. Firstly, this discussion is being recorded and will be posted on the DME for Peace community page, as well as the Alliance for Peacebuilding website. So those who are not able to join us at this time can go back and listen to the presentation and the discussion. Secondly, you can submit a question in two ways. The first is through the question function on your GoToWebinar dashboard, where you can type your questions. The second is to click on the hand icon to raise your hand, which will allow us to unmute your microphone so that you can ask your question live. Prior to each question, we would kindly ask you to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're joining from, and what organization you're from. And you can submit questions right away, so please get cracking. And now, without further ado, Shamsia, let's get started with a few questions to help our audience warm up and set up the larger conversation. So, Shamsia, could you tell us a bit more about your background, about your work with CRS, and a bit more about your experience?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Jack and Jessica and all the participants. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know we might be from different parts of the world. I'm really happy to be here to really share my experience with you on interreligious peace building or interreligious action work. Yeah. As Jack and Jessica have said, I work for Catholic Relief Services, and for the last 7 years, I've been managing an interreligious peace building, interreligious action project in several countries in Africa, and that tells you that I am a peace builder. I like calling myself a peace practitioner, and what I like about the interreligious peace building or the interreligious action bit is the integration of development and peace building, and that is what I have been doing in the SACA project that I have been managing since 2013, thanks to GHR that supported this work. That ended in September 30th. The second phase ended in September 30th. We started in 2013 in 6 countries, and it was really responding to religious tension that was coming out as a result of violence that had religion as a factor. And in contexts where we have diverse people of diverse religious backgrounds, and the project itself, SACA, which means Capacity for Interreligious Community Action within CRS, intended to build the capacity of CRS and partners, specifically those working in multi-religious contexts, to engage in whatever work it is that they're engaging in, whether it is in education, whether it is in health, in a way that promotes social cohesion between people of different faiths. And the first phase, we were in implementing the project in Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Egypt, in Nigeria, and in Niger. And really, the project was in two phases. The first phase was capacity building, really, we didn't want to assume that the faith actors that we were working with or the partners that we were working with have the knowledge. And it was really taking the different aspects of peace building, the conflict assessment, the conflict sensitivity, and bringing in this religious aspect that has now become a really major identity or factor in many of the conflicts. And the intention was really to utilize religious resources as a force for good, as a force for peace building. So yes, Jack, who am I? I am a peace builder who for the last 7 years has been working with communities to improve their capacity and their competency in interreligious peace building or interreligious action. Yeah.
Shamsia, thank you for that detailed answer. So I suppose that sets us up quite well.
Yeah.
So let's start with a programming question. I think I see a number of people online from organizations that would not normally work in interreligious programs. So what makes working on an interreligious peace building program different from a traditional secular program?
So what makes it different, just from the title of it, interreligious, is that religious aspects of it. Yeah, bringing in faith into peace building, and you will bring in faith through different ways. One is either using people who identify themselves as faith actors, yeah, either drawing on their religious resources or their institutions, and bringing that and weaving it into existing peace building tools or peace building approaches. I'll give you an example of what we did in the SACA project. I mentioned that we had a series of training sessions for our partners, and the first session that we had was identifying religious teachings from the religions that we worked with. And I know different contexts will have different religions. The context that we were working with Muslims, and we were working with Christians and traditionalists, yeah? So we engaged our participants to go back to the Bible, to go back to the Quran and identify religious verses that talk about justice and peace for all. Yeah, these are shared values that we used as a foundation to begin the conversation between the different religions working in diverse contexts. And we recognize that yes, it's very easy to bring people around things that they have in common, but then they're in reality that there's some things that they will never agree upon. Yeah. So in as much as we are talking about the shared values for justice and peace, we have a conversation on how they can use these verses that talk about justice and peace to overcome the things that they will never agree about. Yeah. So that they have a non-violent interaction. They can have a discussion, they can disagree, but it does not have to be violent because of religion. So, and these resources can be used in contexts where we have religion as a factor in conflict, or religion as an avenue to help communities in conflict address the conflict. So in the SACA project, we had that really fast training session on exploring teachings from both religions that talk about justice and peace. And then that becomes the foundation for any other training that you'll have, whether it's conflict assessment or peace building approaches, yeah? So that's how we started, and I'm happy to report, Jack, and I'll share with the participants a link of the resource pack that came out of these 7 years of working with faith communities. We have a resource pack that has 4 modules: faith-based teachings on justice and peace, conflict assessment, conflict sensitive for interreligious action, and then partnership and collaboration.
Shamsia, I can't wait to read that pack, and I know our audience will be very keen to access it. And I think you've done a great job, Shamsia, just identifying the differences and the nuances between, or the important things to consider in an interreligious peace-building program. A lot of people here are curious about what makes preparing for an interreligious program evaluation different. Like how does the evaluation side of things different from any other kind of program?
All right. From the beginning, I mentioned the aspect of religion that is really at the heart of interreligious peace building or interreligious peace, interreligious action work. So when it comes to evaluation and when it comes to monitoring, these are some of the things that you will be looking at. If I give you an example of what SACA was addressing and what we were looking for, is because of the violence that was happening in many contexts in where the SACA project was being implemented, there was behavior change, there was attitude change between people of different faiths, based on perception, based on rumors that they have heard about people of other faiths, not based on authentic understanding of the teachings of the other faith, to know that actually these people are behaving like this because of religion, or an understanding that actually those who are engaging in violence is a misinterpretation of religion. So when you are monitoring or evaluating interreligious work, you'll be looking at behavior change. You want to see if perceptions have changed, but you want to know what has informed the perception change. Is it that they now have more knowledge of each other that has now led to a better understanding, increased tolerance, removed the fear? So you just don't end up looking at how the behavior, or whether there is observation of behavior change, but you want to know, to go deeper to find out what is it that has led to that behavior change. Is it that they have more increased knowledge about, if it is a Muslim, they have more knowledge about Christians. If it's Christians, that they have more knowledge about Muslims, and you want to measure at the beginning of the project, what was the knowledge of the religious other, and several months after they have interacted with each other, after they have gone through the training, what knowledge have they acquired that has actually led to change in behavior and change to perception about the other. So there's really an intentional focus on religion identity in the evaluation process.
Great, thank you, Shamsia. And just a reminder to our audience who have been typing some questions, if you want to click on the hand icon on your GoToWebinar dashboard, that will allow us to see that you've raised your hand and unmute your microphone. We want this to be a conversation between all of us. So this is an opportunity for you to, ask a question directly to myself, Shamsia, and Jessica, who's on the line, to ask about the different pieces. Because I'm seeing one question here that has come from Dennis Arend, and Dennis is a senior analyst at a family foundation called Porticus. And this question, I think, is more targeted at evaluation generally, rather than religious peace building evaluation. So Jessica, I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on this. And Dennis's question is, what is your experience with determining the most appropriate evaluation methodology for those evaluations where you want to assess the impact of the interventions? So how do you decide on your methodology So Shamsia, I don't know if you want to take that first, and then we can maybe hear from Jessica on that.
Yeah. Now, when you're planning for an evaluation, and it depends at what stage you actually begin planning for the evaluation within CRS. It's very early at the beginning of the project implementation, where you come up with a monitoring and evaluation system. Of course, you're going to gather information as you implement the project to assess whether you are actually meeting your goals, and to also make observation of any changes that are happening that will help you either improve on the project or make programmatic decisions. So from the beginning, you will decide whether what you want to assess is effectiveness, proper use of resources. Of course, these are things that monitoring and evaluation would want to look at. But for us, our high priority for the SACA, we wanted to look at effectiveness, we wanted to look at impact, and we wanted to also look at sustainability, yeah? Because we want, even in as much as these projects has come to an end, we would like that in the next 5 years, that the project has continued and expanded to help address conflict in the context where it was implemented. And then at a lower level, we also had issues on priority. Was it really a priority? Was it really relevant? And efficiency, proper use of resources can also be considered. So I would say for us and for any evaluation, these are things that you would want to look at when you're planning for evaluation: effectiveness, impact, sustainability, relevance, and efficiency. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Jessica can add something.
Yeah, Jessica, I'm curious to hear your thoughts as an evaluation wizard. Like, what are your approaches to how do you identify a methodology for an evaluation? How do you make the best decision possible?
Well, and I just want to check that you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, I've also been having some connection difficulties. I think one of the best places that I would stress for individuals, and Shamsia, you mentioned this, is when we start to prepare for an evaluation. An evaluation isn't just something that can happen at the end of a program. So careful thought and planning needs to go in early on. And that has an influence on what type of evaluation approaches may be possible. I think, Shamsia, you also highlighted a really critical component of what is the purpose of the evaluation. Oftentimes, I think we get caught up in the specific technique or approach we want to use versus reflecting upon the questions we need to answer and what type of data collection or perhaps evaluation approach would most easily get us that information. Now, of course, there are trade-offs there between whether we're looking at internal or external evaluations, the type of internal or external validity we want to reach in terms of the evaluation results and how they're conducted. But I always encourage individuals to reflect upon the data and the questions they're asking are what should dictate the tools and approaches we use. Particularly, and I think this is important, and we'll certainly share out, Shamsia, the CIRCA evaluation, which is available on CRS's website, and I know I've really enjoyed working with you and learning more about this project because it is a multi-country project. You know, they were focused on effectiveness and learning in a lot of ways and had very critical questions in relation to how the validity of their theory of change, you know, what type of dynamics, particularly gender dynamics, were playing a role and how the project responded to that. And that dictated more of a qualitative and mixed methods approach that allowed them to dive deeper into their beneficiary responses compared to if they determined they wanted just to look at programmatic impact or effectiveness writ large. So I think starting first with when we plan and what questions we ask and what data we need can really help us determine the best approaches. And I think within interreligious peace building, one component to be thoughtful of course, is the dynamic role that how individuals within the program respond to data or how they reflect upon limitations of a program. Is this a discrete program that really has set timeframes versus this is an ongoing calling that could have compounding effects from multiple years of programming? Those types of considerations also impact what we're able to evaluate, and making sure, of course, from a secular point of view, that we're never trying to evaluate the quality of religion or the way that religion influences people's or programmatic effectiveness. I think that's an easy trap to fall into depending on the stakeholders you work with. So having participatory methods, but also being able to understand the limitations of those questions.
Jessica, thank you so much. That was a great detailed answer, and sorry for calling on you cold. I really appreciate it. And as someone who isn't an evaluator, you know, sometimes I facilitate these conversations, and I recognize like the deficiencies in my own knowledge, but it also sort of makes my brain shift towards outputs. I may not be a sort of evaluator, but I write TORs for evaluators, and I hire quite a few evaluators. So I was wondering if you, Shamsia, had any advice on how to hire the best interreligious peacebuilding evaluators. Are there things you specifically look for when you're hiring a consultant to evaluate an interreligious peacebuilding project?
Yes, that reminds me that what we went through when looking for consultants to actually conduct this work. I mean, it's not difficult to find good evaluators, yeah, but for interreligious peace building and interreligious action, at least you would want to have somebody who has got some background on interreligious work, yeah, to be able to have that perspective or that eye to look for aspects of religion in the program work that has been done, to identify issues that need to be improved, to capture lessons properly for us. So from my experience, for interreligious peace building evaluation, it would be really important to have somebody who has some knowledge or background on interreligious peace building or interreligious evaluation.
Great, thank you, Shamsia. A reminder to our audience, click on the hand icon, raise your hand, and let us hear you live. Okay, we had a raised hand. I won't call on them now because they might be a little bit shy. Oh, and we have a raised hand from Billflavin. William, I am unmuting your microphone. Please feel free to ask your question live.
This is Billflavin, professor, U.S. Army War College, previous assistant director of Peacekeeping Stability Institute. A question based on your experience in evaluation over the various years. What has consistently been the major challenge you've had in the evaluations? Is there some issue that constantly comes up that you're having problems getting your hands around? Thank you.
Great, thank you, Bill.
Yes, a consistent challenge that we have experienced in evaluating interreligious peace building is an issue that is also common in other non-religious evaluation. Is the issue of attribution. Yeah, how do we really attribute the change that is happening really to for instance, the knowledge that participants have received. Yes, at the beginning you ask them, do you have any knowledge of a Christian or do you have any knowledge of a Muslim? And they would say no. And how you might ask them, how often do you interact with them? They will say not very often, or they hardly interact with each other. But after going through the training, and in the case of SACA, there was a practical aspect where we had connector projects that brought them together. Of course, when we did the evaluation years later, but they had more knowledge, their behavior towards each other had improved. So how are you able to attribute the behavior change to either the training or perhaps the training and the interaction that happened? Many of the connector projects were of benefit to them, so that was a motivation. How much of the behavior change do you attribute to the motivation to engage in the connector project because of the benefits that they were getting from the connector project? Many of the connector projects were microfinance, so there was some income that was coming for them. So was it the income that led to behavior change that made them more interested in getting to know about people of other faith? So it's just that issue of attribution. Yes, we have seen that a change happened, but can we put a finger and say that it's actually more knowledge about, or knowledge about people of other faiths that led to the transformation that we see? So that I can say has been a consistent challenge in our evaluation. Jack?
While Jack jumps back on, I'll also say, when we're thinking about preparing for an evaluator, an issue that we've really run into often has been finding evaluators with a faith knowledge or background that are able to be educated enough in that component, because it does play a major role. And we found a lot of pushback from just implementing straight evaluations within faith-based programming. So seeking out experts who have skills in both strong, highly rigorous evaluation, at the same time who have a faith background or educated background on understanding those faith components and having that competency has been very difficult with some of the programs we've worked with at AFP to help identify those evaluators.
Yeah, and I'm back now, guys. Apologies for the disconnection. I think we're all having internet issues, no matter where we are in the United States, South Africa, or in the UK. So sorry about that. We're going to go to our next raised hand, which is coming from Anthony Blaze. And Anthony, you are unmuted. I think you're muted right now, so please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question to Shamsia.
Thank you so much, Jack, Jessica, and peace greetings to all participants. First, I have two questions. My first question is based on your experience, Shamsa. What are some of the principal features of a faith-based peace building evaluation? What are those features that you've gained over time? And also, my second question in line with that are what are some of the key focus of interreligious peace building evaluation? What is that focus that we need to be looking at when we are designing those interventions? Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So your question is sort of related, yeah? The principal features of faith-based and the focus of interreligious evaluation, yeah? And I want to say that these will begin from the time you plan for the interreligious peace building. So what really must be there in the interreligious peace building or action program from the beginning when you're implementing, so that at the end, when you want to do an evaluation, you will be looking at, did these aspects really have an impact, yeah? And for interreligious peace building, it's bringing in religion into peace building, yeah. Not like Jessica has said, we are not assessing whether religion is good or bad. No, we are just saying that in this context, we have Christians, we have Muslims, we have Buddhists, and religion is very important for them, and it can have an influence in behavior change and attitude. So bringing in religion in all its aspects, whether it's utilizing religious structures, yeah, whether it's having the participants having their meetings in the cathedral, yeah, bringing in scripture that talks about peace, yeah, and non-violence, and the importance of harmony, and that leads now to what your focus is going to be in evaluation. Of course, there'll be the wider issues of peace that you want to find out. Has there been collaboration? Has there been partnership? And then you also want to see, how did religion influence this? Yeah, how did engaging the participants in a mosque affected their interaction? How did engaging participants in a church affect? How did involving religious leaders, bringing religious leaders together, influence the outcome of the peace building intervention? So those are the things that you're really going to focus on when it comes to interreligious peace building.
Great.
I would,
Yeah, Jessica, go ahead.
add just a few other quick components, because what Shamsia is getting at there as well is it's highly dependent upon the context and the conflict assessment. Are we talking about a conflict that is drawn from religious disputes, and what then would be the impact of working with trusted and faith leaders to promote peace through that resolution? Are we talking about utilizing or leveraging the role and the authority that religious actors play within certain communities and across certain conflicts, and understanding the impact or influence that they are able to bring to calming tensions or addressing sectarian disputes? We also look at different things like the role, as Shamsia was getting at, that ritual can play in reconciliation and trauma and healing, and how acts of witness or the ways in which congregations or faith rituals can change or can create behavioral or attitudinal change, some of those components. So it's really dependent upon both the conflict and, I would say, the needs of the society, because both engagement of faith actors can be very different from utilizing rituals or utilizing or leveraging leadership roles compared to a religious dispute or a conflict which is driven by religious tensions or identity-based conflict that's fueled by religion. So also understanding the context in which the evaluation is occurring and the programming will greatly influence both the features and the principal components. But most interreligious evaluations would involve different components of both of those, but would be contextually driven.
Great, thank you, Jessica, for adding that extra context. We've got questions from And Dennis, I'm going to unmute your microphone so that you can ask your question live. If you want to just click on your little microphone to turn it green.
It's green,
Dennis,
so you should be hearing me.
please go ahead and ask your question.
I'd like to ask Shamsia and perhaps also Jessica about the design of your evaluation, because you raised a very interesting and very important point when you said one of the most difficult things to work with and to assess is the attribution of a program, and that's exactly something we are grappling with as Portuguese at a foundation as well with our partners, where we want to do evaluations. We want to try and measure the effectiveness, and if we are lucky, even the impact of the peace building and religious interventions. But then for us to decide, how do we know? How can we attribute the result of those interventions to the actual effect that we have? So traditionally, in other fields, people would then argue you would have to go for an experimental design with control groups, or you would go for quasi-experimental design, but still with control groups. But in the field of this interreligious and peace building, it may be very difficult. And I don't have that experience, and I'm trying to just to hear from you. You may have done it, you may have tried it and decided against it. I just want to learn a bit from your own experience, actual experience, which I don't have.
Yeah. All right. I think one of the ways we really tried to deal with this issue of attribution is one, especially in the first phase of SACA, is that we did a baseline to actually assess the knowledge of the participants who are to participate in the training in the religious teachings of the other, yeah, and the same were assessed at during the evaluation, and later on, when we were thinking about the evaluation and how to go about attribution, the evaluator was thinking that perhaps we would have asked direct questions about specific knowledge that they actually received about religion, and specifically about another religion that they have been able to utilize in their interaction, and how they actually were able to use the religious knowledge in influencing behavior and actions of each other. So it's basically for I would say it would be having direct questions to assess that aspect of religion that you want to find out how it had an influence on people of different faiths. That's what I would say, because we talked about it a lot. I remember during the end of the first evaluation. Yeah, so that's what I can say.
And Jessica, have you anything you would like to add?
I would just say quickly that, obviously this is a complicated question in conflict or peace building writ large. And when you add in interreligious component, it's very difficult. And the only successful approaches I've seen that have really stuck to, understanding causal pathways and really getting towards attribution are more in effect when we can see very clear and measure very clear behavior changes. The attitudinal changes have been very difficult for a variety of reasons, whether that's in protection of holy sites, when we really can demonstrably measure the effectiveness of collaboration across faiths compared to areas that did not, and trying to leverage situations where natural control and treatment groups appear. This, like I said, I think the best lessons we can pull are from, in some regards, other peace building evaluations that maybe have a component of faith but are not traditionally termed interreligious, but would definitely be seeking out when those natural opportunities have occurred, such as a natural disaster that inherently separated groups into a natural treatment and control, and trying to find some of those leveraging. But it definitely, and knowing Dennis, I know that that's not a satisfactory answer, but definitely is something that we're all constantly seeking. And I think, again, reverting back to sometimes the questions of what is the question that we're asking, and do we need an incontrovertible attributable response, or is it that maybe we just don't quite have enough data yet to generalize those hypotheses for that type of impact testing? We've really seen difficulty in just collecting data across these programming, and importantly, part of that is based in questions of measurement. When we talk about, bearing faith witness, or the role of a trusted faith leader's impact on, congregations' response, or their greater ability towards tolerance or political change, we haven't, I would say, so take that as my own opinion, we've struggled with determining effective measures for that, to let alone understand a logical pathway that could then be tested via causal pathways. And that has inhibited our ability to use some of these techniques. But the few that I've seen succeed, as I said, have leveraged opportunities for natural control and treatment groups, and have attempted to look more at the behavioral or concrete change compared to attitudinal changes.
Great, thank you, Jessica. As we enter, or just going to get close to the last 10 minutes, I'm going to make time for a few more questions. And I'm going to unmute Jessica's colleague, Sarah, from Alliance for Peacebuilding, who's asked a great question in the question function. And Sarah, you are self-muted, so if you want to click on the little red microphone, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jack. Thank you so much, Shamsia, for this. I just wanted to ask, what have you found is the best practices on who to involve in an interreligious peacebuilding evaluation process? Or in other words, like, what are some of the best practices on determining who is part of your evaluation team? Thank you so much.
Yeah. Who is important to involve in the evaluation team, of course. And for us, just to mention that we really had to change our evaluation plan because we conducted our evaluation during a pandemic. So, and we really found it useful to involve the partners really in planning the evaluation, because if I give an example of how we did our evaluation, it was all virtual, yeah. There was travel restrictions, nobody could travel, so we had to work with our partners in the 4 locations, in Garissa, in Malindi, in Koni, and in Agadez. And our M&E partner colleagues at CRS at the country level. So we had multiple levels of M&E team. We had the evaluator, and then we had the CRS level at the country level, and then we had the partner level, and then we worked with the enumerators. So in as much as we are assessing implementation of activities with partners, I think there are strategies that we can use so that even if we are collecting data from them, that they can be part of the evaluation process. Yeah, just thinking through the questions. Yeah, thinking through how we go about collecting the data. And if I can mention also that since we said that preparation for monitoring and evaluation starts earlier on. For us, something that we learned from the first SACA evaluation is that if we always have a theory of change, yeah. And we thought that it was going to be useful that once you have developed a theory of change, at the beginning of the project, you give the partners an opportunities to actually unpackage the theory of change to their own context, to their own understanding, to bring it to their level. So the same way as we engage in evaluation, we engage them so that they help us think through these things that we are grappling with. Yeah? They would, for instance, maybe help us think how best to make the attribution of behavior change if we give them the space to participate with us in thinking through about the purpose of the evaluation, what appropriate strategies we will need to use. And that's a big lesson that has come from the evaluation that we did during the pandemic, because it would really have been impossible to do the evaluation without the support that we received from our partners on the ground.
Shamsia, thank you so much for a detailed answer. Jessica, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that about key things to consider or key people to involve.
I would just highlight that all participatory methods are not only 100% necessary, because the local, and by local I mean those who are beneficiaries and most participate in evaluation, are best situated to understand the effectiveness of a tool, as well as analyzing results and what different trend lines mean compared to just external review. But of course, the need for planning in effective time. It takes a lot more time to have a participatory method. And I remember in the Circa evaluation, it started through that process with over 20 research questions. So what everyone wants and trying to reach consensus and understanding the limitations, as with all good peace building, bringing more people in means it takes more time and resources. So making sure to effectively plan for that. Yeah,
I think that's a huge factor of the participatory process, is you need to be deliberate about the time and you need to be explicit about it. Okay, as we begin to wrap up, I want to unmute one last person to make a comment, and that is Mary Dawson from the GHR Foundation. So Mary, if you just click on your microphone, it will turn live.
Thanks, Jack. Hi, everyone. As I heard the questions coming in, it just occurred to me that there are a number of resources out there over the last probably 8 years. Some are located on AFP's website under the Interreligious Action tab. Some are located on Search's DM&E for Peace site. But one is, Mercy Corps did compare, they didn't do a randomized controlled trial, but they did compare working with religious actors in one community on a development project and working and not working with religious actors in another context. And that was in their Concur and IPNN impact evaluation, which Jack has shared a link to. He also shared a link to the Faith Guide, or the Faith Matters Guide to DM&E for Interreligious Action for Peace Building. And then there's one other one that was done with it was a peace building evaluation consortium that Carnegie Corporation sponsored, and that one is a meta review of interreligious peace building program evaluation. So some of them are a few years out of date, but they're still the best that we have right now. And I just would encourage everyone to look at the resources that we do have, and let's keep continuing to build on those resources and making sure we share them with our networks. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mary. And I'm going to post, like you said, I posted the links to the Faith Matters Guide, the Mercy Corps Impact Evaluation, and I'm also posting a link to the guide that was done by CDA, I think back in 2015, which is around the meta review that you mentioned. Okay, guys, so we're nearly at time for our first Ask an Expert webinar series. So first of all, I want to thank Shamsia for being a wonderful guest, a wonderful expert, and a wonderful host, and answering the questions so openly and giving us so much of her expertise today. Shamsia, I don't know if you have any closing remarks that you would like to share with today's audience.
No, thank you, Jack, and Alliance for Peace Building for Common Ground for giving me this opportunity to share the experience from SACA, and yeah, I hope we continue engaging in interreligious peace building, interreligious action work, because I really do believe we need to engage more in this kind of work to help us deal with the challenges that we are confronted with in our societies. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shamsia. And Jessica, have you any final words for today's audience?
I would just say very quickly, one, of course, thank you all so much for your questions and the conversation. I always find it very enriching. Mary, thank you for your point, and definitely we're looking to share out a curated grouping of resources for each of the Ask an Expert series. Some overlap, some of which have been provided with you already today, but things like the CIRCA evaluation, the Concur IPN and evaluation, ones that we found useful. And just to say, as an optimistic viewpoint, that while we may not have the answers yet for all of these very difficult questions, I think engaging in these conversations on what has not worked and what we have learned and what has worked really helps move us closer and helps us really think about what are the appropriate questions to ask in these contexts, which, you know, is only informed by, I guess, standing on the shoulders of giants in that regard, and previous work like CIRCA, like CRS's incredible work cross-regionally, Search for Common Ground, Mercy Corps, and many, many others of which I'm forgetting. So thank you so much.
Great. Jessica, thank you so much for all of your work in coordinating the sort of effective interreligious action in peace building program. And thank you, Mary, for your support and support of the GHR Foundation. And with that, I think we're finished for today. Thank you to our audience for joining this webinar. This recording will be posted online on the DME for Peace EIAP page and shared with our colleagues at Alliance for Peace Building, so they can post it on their website as well. So please feel free to return to it and share it with your colleagues. This webinar was the first in a three-part series, and it will continue next week when we'll be joined by Rebecca Harrington, CEO and Director of Strategic Learning at Headlight Consulting Services. Rebecca is going to join us for a 1-hour session on how to adapt your peace building programs to ensure maximum efficiency and effectiveness. Rebecca is my old boss at Search, who worked on the EIAP program back in 2016. So she is a great resource and an expert in this field. So I'm really excited to have that discussion. And if you want to register right now, the link is in your chat box. Thank you all. Please look out for each other. It's a tough year out there, and I look forward to talking to you all again soon.
Thank you.